Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist Podcast as we explore our culture of simulations. Hello, welcome back. Another week of the Simulationist Podcast. This is the 99th iteration.
Woo! We're Gretzkying it.
Wayne Gretzky. And this is the 27th of July, 2014. My name is Josh Trelevin.
I think I'm still Ryan Kirkby.
And you're still Ryan Kirkby. And
I won't lie, I've been on some muscle relaxant medication this week, so I'm only about 75 to 80% certain I am Ryan Kirkby.
That's good enough for me.
Well, that's how we'll put it down in the logbooks. I've already stated it. We're good. So yeah, let's hop right into things, because I got some fun announcement to make.
Okay, yeah, cool. Gaming news.
Yes,
one of our games, like...
Well, I think everyone should at least be watching this sort of game, just for the amount of attention and difference it's managed to generate in the industry.
So, don't keep us hanging?
Dwarf Fortress, version 40 released.
A new version of Dwarf Fortress.
The numbers for Dwarf Fortress indicate how many big major goals and arcs have been accomplished in the game.
Right.
And the previous one was the 2010 version for maybe version 34. So in the span of 4 years, he's managed to complete 6 objectives. Woo! Which is 6 big objectives, things that really wound up changing the entire nature of the town when you go adventuring into a town, how people interact, how armies go about the whole thing.
Okay.
And so there's been some really big changes. Biggest of all is creatures can now climb. It used to be that there's a nice joke out there someone drew up on the internet for a cartoon. A bunch of dwarves are walking around. It's like, oh no, a giant's attacking. And they're like, well, who cares? We put up a wall. And it just shows all the dwarves, and there's a 10-foot wall, and the giant whose foot is 10 feet high can't go over the wall because the giant can't climb it.
Ah, yes.
No, they can climb now, and they have size-based reach and all that, and it's very well done, very deep stuff. But now a lot of people are redesigning their fortress layout. This is my ideal fortress layout, and you do this and all that. No, you got to make sure you put roofs on things, otherwise the goblins could just climb up over your little barricade walls and just jump down and slaughter everyone. Rah!
Oh, well, that's, I like that, for realism's sake. I like it.
It still doesn't do much against my system, whereby I effectively hollow out most of the map, going down and just put my, dwarven fortress in the center. Any goblin would have to wind up going down, and then with a nice little underhang, climb upside down and further down there, and if they slip and fall, they are dead. And the fun thing is, if you can ever get this working in Dwarf Fortress, with a retractable bridge, get some enemies going on it. Not too big, of course. Retractable bridges don't work if you got too big of creatures going over, but you get a bunch of goblins running on the bridge, retract the bridge, and they all fall down, and they fall, and they fall, and if you get far enough away, and they hit ground, bam, they splatter into 30, 40 pieces. It's like 20 teeth go flying out, an arm goes flying this way, the head goes popped off, and goes up another 4 vertical levels before it bounces. If this thing was graphically rendered, it would definitely be a rated mature game, but as it is, it's all ASCII parts, so it's a little red letter 2 for a body part. So it is entertaining for those like me. It's oh boy, my trap worked, and they all fall and explode upon impact. In my defense, that means less fighting for my dwarves, which means less killing, sort of thing, whereby everyone just kind of meets up, hurts each other so bad everyone just kind of goes crawling away, and they're forever immobilized in bed because severed spine.
Okay.
So I take this exploding goblin phenomenon as a sign of healthier dwarves.
That's
True, traps are very effective, aren't they?
Especially for a race where you're going to have to support and feed them eternally. Like, if you sever a goblin spine and they manage to crawl off the map, that goblin's gone, man. No one has to feed that goblin. It's not like regular warfare, whereby if you hurt an enemy enough, you can really impact their fighting capabilities. This is why landmines were created. It's like, okay, how can we hurt the most amount of people but not actually kill the most amount? And they said, hey, landmine. And then it's like, all of a sudden, we can't advance because we got too many wounded and we're using up all our supplies, making sure they don't bleed to death. Because we're not horrible monsters. And so, yeah, Dwarf Fortress doesn't have that, except for the side of the dwarves, where if a dwarf is, got an injured spine and they'll never be able to walk again, they're going to be in bed for, say, maybe 100 game years. Most games don't last 100 years, so that's effectively the rest of the time as an invalid dwarf, and I don't like to do that. I like to try and protect my little guys.
Right.
But yes, that said, about the new version of Dwarf Fortress, I haven't actually started up a game yet. Because I know Dwarf Fortress, and I know it's still deeply in beta, and so although it has been out for 7 days, they have gone through 5 version releases. So this is, as of today, version 40.05.
Okay.
Fixing game-breaking bugs, I tried to scroll over and see what this dwarf likes, and the game crashed on me.
Oh, yeah. Well, isn't that sort of the reason that they do beta releases, is so that people, I guess it depends on how much time you have, because some people have more time to beta test than others.
Yes, there are some people with enough time to actually come up with the solution. This crash happens to me, it's this error, it's a simple binary fix, just do this. And, well, Toady, the programmer, is not usually one to have other people come in on his work. He is smart enough to see, there we go, fix that problem, on to the next problem.
Those were key presses, by the way, right?
Yeah, I was trying to make key press sounds without actually having a keyboard. But yeah, if you can fix it in 3 keystrokes, well, problem solved, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a nice thing, is everyone go there and start looking at the forums and all the wonderful art it manages to produce, because there have been some very beautiful pieces of artwork. Very disturbing pieces of artwork, but that's kind of the nature of Dwarf Fortress. We are horrible people doing hilariously funny things. Or at least we think they are. That was the big part of gaming news this week. I just think everyone should at least follow the concept of Dwarf Fortress and what it's doing, because it's so different from the mainstream games, so far removed from what everyone else seems to be trying, and yet it's still managing to make its way, and Toady is able to make a decent, comfortable life supporting himself, doing what he loves. And I think everybody should be happy to see that. Someone doing what they want and being able to make a life out of that. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Gives hope for everyone. So, yeah, that was the news this week. That was the professional news. Well, how about personal news? What have you been up to this week, Josh?
Personal stuff. Yes. My week in gaming this week. I guess I always turn to Minecraft, so I will again, as I always do. Actually, wait. First, simulation-wise, I purchased a painting, which I think...
Oh, that's right. I was looking at the painting earlier.
Yeah, I purchased a new painting, and sort of, I guess a painting is a simulation in a way. I mean, somebody else painted it, obviously, but then I get to look at it and enjoy it.
Interpret it as you so see fit.
It's a scene from the street of Paris from, 100 years ago or something like that, a long time ago.
They are wearing antiquated clothing, I can tell that.
Yeah, and so it's painted by, a real person. I forget his name.
It's not like one of those reproductions, because, Robert Bateman does some great stuff, but he also reproduces a lot of his work. Good quality, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah, and it's always nice to have, I also, right above it, I have a print of Emily Carr's, which is just a poster, which is cool, too, but it's neat to have an actual, painting.
Oh, yes.
That someone did.
I actually quite like the texture of it. It has the bumps and the ridges. So while the poster is clean and smooth, this one has almost a 3D detail to it, in a sense.
Yeah, that's quite right. So I don't know. So that's simulating a thing, simulating a street in Paris.
It's within view of one of the Arc de Triomphe sort of thing.
It's that one.
I do like it. For those of you who can't see, which is everyone except me and Josh, it's actually a black and white street painting, except for the light in the windows and the clothes on the people. So it's like everything is black and white, and the only thing that adds color is people. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like just gonna sit down and later on think about like the symbolism of what that means. It's like without humanity around to really add something to some meaning to it, the world is really just kind of black and white on its own. It just simply is. We add the color just by us being there. That's what I'm getting out of this one painting. I don't know if that's what the painter intended, but you know what? I'm taking it.
No, it's that's what you do when you look at art. Is you see the story that you bring out of it. Like no matter what, it doesn't really matter too much. I mean, some people debate about how much the intention.
The artist appreciate it if you see the same thing that they were trying to do.
I think they sometimes do, but a lot of artists are like they enjoy when people find totally new things.
It's like, no, I just drew a bunch of colored cubes on a white background. But what do you see?
But you saw a rabbit, and that was awesome. Or whatever.
I'll have to keep doing these cuboidal rabbits a little bit more often. See how much more you see. Tell me if you start seeing other animals here. Let's keep going with this.
And that's I like your thought about that humanity adds color because
a lot of people are all down on humanity. Say, we're horrible. We're killing the planet. But without humanity there, like there's nothing to be introspective about the nature of existence. There's nothing to give it extra meaning.
Yeah, I
the naval contemplation.
I mean, it's
for better or worse, we color the planet with our perceptions.
Well, it's sort of a Zen, like, what is this? Does a tree make a sound when it falls in the wood? Because
prove to me that the tree fell. Ooh.
Yeah.
Counterpoint.
If we weren't already human, then we wouldn't be able to observe the world. So it's a little bit difficult to comment on what the world would be like without us. Although, I hope that in the next 20 years or so we'll be detecting planets like exoplanets with oxygen signatures. I mean, I listen to science podcasts about that, and they're saying don't get your hopes too much up, but it's going to happen.
Between you and me, there's this large blank spot in space. Not large as in, it occupies a quarter of the night sky, but there's a patch of darkness in the sky, and everyone's like, "Wow, why are there no stars there?" And I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm not going to bet money on this, but I would be really, really stoked and overjoyed if it turns out there's a huge, multi-system, society out there, and they're utilizing so much energy coming out of the stars, none of the light manages to make it to us. It's like Dyson sphere, but instead of, just the one planet sort of thing, just the one star system there, it's a whole section of space gets slowly blanketed out because we kind of need it. It's either that or, we find some way to get coal and burn that. And, we're out in space. Where's that smoke going to go? This is not working. Solar panels, so much you can't see the star anymore.
Space is a perfect place to send smoke away. Although I guess you're losing mass every time you vent smoke.
Carbon is pretty darn precious too. I mean, if you got a 3D printer, then you've got half of like the Star Trek, a lot of Star Trek technology. We got half of their replicators. Mm-hmm. So if you got something that could break down the smoke into something you could use, well, there's your other half. And congratulations, you have anything you want, provided you got a little energy. Oh, hey, build a solar panel first, pop that up there, power your 3D printer, reclaimer, bam. And that's why you can't see the star. So many 3D printers. Getting rid of the smoke.
Well, that's a very cool idea. I can imagine it working on a small scale, like a subgalactic scale, but conquering a whole galaxy, wow. Well, it
doesn't have to be a whole galaxy. For all we know, it's just like a few dozen stars, and then everything's getting blocked by it.
Okay, are we talking a void, like, within the galaxy?
I'm not exactly certain as to what is not there or where it's supposed to be. It's really hard for me to tell where the heck everything is in the universe from a 2-dimensional picture, and it would really help me if someone was to do like a 3D kind of diagram, like, we think this area is missing here, and it's like, oh, it's just kind of like an end of the Milky Way spiral thing. Maybe it's just like a weird, void near the end. Maybe it's just like, no, we can't see anything here, and we believe this is blocking everything on this side, so,
Okay, well, that's probably for another podcast. Or maybe somebody else.
Secret societies. Lost civilizations. Why are they lost? They're just not letting any information out.
How did we even get... Oh, because humans, the importance of humans. I think we need at least us to be human in order to observe the galaxy. But after that, the galaxy and the universe, after that, I don't know if humans are that necessary to make a planet interesting. Because I'm sure there are lots of things. Like, imagine a planet full of life, but no humans.
Well, I'll tell you this. With no sentient life out on this imaginary planet we've come up with, there's a very small chance of humorous T-shirts being made in any form. Therefore, it's better to have some sort of sentient race there. Even if they're like F-shirts instead of T-shirts or whatever form suits the body.
Their arms are on the same side of their body.
Well, that's the thing. What if it's like like a society where everyone like twins, and so instead of like a marriage between man and woman, it's like a marriage between left and right side people, and then you just wind up sitting next to like the right side person because you're a lefty.
Okay.
And then I suppose if you're of that persuasion, then you get two lefties, and then you have to face the other way to make things work.
Oh boy!
But that's still perfectly acceptable, so long as everyone's willing and okay with that.
I was just thinking that the alien religious people are going to go nuts.
It's a flaw within their genetics. They were born the way. No, they made the conscious choice. No. Whatever. F-shirts instead of T-shirts. Maybe Y-shirts. I don't know. Maybe the aliens can't put their hands down. Weird evolutionary quirk. I mean, if you look at mollusks, their bum is above their mouth. Yeah, why they didn't, die out from sepsis is a little bit beyond a lot of science, but suffice to say, they're still around. And it's a torsion within their digestive system. So if you can have that for a group of animals, then I can see like a sentient species that just can't properly lower its arms.
Just because.
Well, I don't know, maybe some sort of like tree planet, and they're all like brachiating sort of thing, and whereby putting your arms down doesn't help because you're always holding on to keep from falling down to the floor. Which I don't know, maybe they got acidic water down there. I haven't been to this planet. I'm making this up. So therefore, arms always up, sort of thing. They just can't lower them. The muscles aren't built that way properly. The best they can do is get to a T-shirt where the arms go outstretched. That's it.
Cool. My other adventure in simulation was I was going to get to Minecraft. I started uploading videos again to YouTube of my gameplay. Still working on the dirt castle. Still making different stuff. What did I do? I made a main building and I put a little pool on the top of it, like a water pool. And I put a throne inside, like a cobblestone throne.
A cobblestone throne for the leader of the dirt.
Dirt castle, cobble throne. Yeah.
So are you planning then to have like a line of grass as like a carpet leading up to the throne, or are you going to go with mycelium, or are you going to keep it proper dirt?
Oh, actually, that's a good thought. It's hard to mix grass and dirt in the same build because they.
One becomes the other.
Yeah, grass grows on the dirt. But I think that would be actually. I think I might.
Well, that's why you could work it with mycelium, with a nice, proper touch sort of thing. You could have like lines, or do a checkerboard pattern with mycelium and grass.
Ooh, yeah.
And you could have it be like, oh yeah, it's just my dirt fortress, but it looks amazing, except the walls. Put paintings up everywhere.
Right now, the entire floor of that throne room is currently grass. But yeah, I like your idea of a strip of grass down the middle with kind of the rest of it dirt. And then I don't know what holding the dirt back.
Well, that's the thing is you could do the line of grass and then have like a mycelium border around that.
Yeah.
And then with enough light, the mycelium shouldn't spread, if I'm not mistaken. Or it might.
It's the same. It works the same as grass. Same mechanics.
In that case, you might have to work with something else a little different than maybe some wood paneling on the floor. Then.
Yeah, I could probably just use wood or something. Yeah.
Just to prevent it from getting too far. But yeah, you have some fun with it, explore, and try out the patterns, man. See how it goes.
Yep.
So that's been your week?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, I think that's everything I've been up to. Yes.
My week has been full of pain and loss.
Oh boy.
Yes. Fortunately, not the kind of pain that's so bad or the kind of loss that's so devastating I can't provide a good 90 minutes of proper co-hosting style.
Okay, well, tell us about what happened.
Well, with Dwarf Fortress being released, with all the added updates, all my mods are completely worthless. So I got to start going through all my stuff, seeing what I can use, what I can't use, how I'm going to have to change all my creatures, and it's just like, oh, that's a lot of work. And so that's been pretty painful. And it's effectively like losing all my mods, because a lot of these I'm going to have to sit down and kind of copy from scratch all over again and try and maintain the style. Okay. Just to make sure I don't do horrible coding violations that blow up my computer in the process.
Yeah, good idea.
Other than that, let's see here is, long story short, my daughter hurt me severely. Too much picking her up, too much, dealing with a young kid kicking around, and, hurt my back again. Oh.
Okay, yeah.
So this week has been heavily fortified by use of cheap muscle relaxants, just to keep myself from, having a back spasm or anything.
Okay.
No reason not to say I didn't have some fun with it. I mean, once, everyone's at home, and everything's settled down, and it's not like I'm needed as a parent, pop a proper half dose, full dose sort of thing, and just, relax and go to sleep. But I have to verify with this, but I think I may have accidentally created in my drug-addled haze an elemental of surprise. It was either I dreamed it as I was just going to sleep, or I did it just before I fell asleep. But it's either in my mind, nearly fully formed, or I've got it on my little netbook computer somewhere.
Well, that idea's out there now.
But the question is, was anyone going to try and steal that idea? The joke is just such a bad pun.
It is pretty horrible, yes.
And yet, I almost hesitate to Google it to see if anyone else has come up with the concept. It's harsh life, like wanting and being curious, and at the other hand, just being too afraid of seeing the results.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the 5th person to do it. It's happened 4 times before. It will happen again.
Yeah, on the internet, that's occasionally, which is sometimes that's good, and I don't know. I always do kind of hope that I will see something when I have an idea. I always kind of hope that, maybe somebody's done it, and I'm a little bit disappointed, to be honest, when I see that nobody has thought of it. Well,
that was one of the things I really liked about 3rd and 3.5 editions for D&D was it's like, oh boy, there's so much product and material out there. I came up with this great idea. I'll Google it. Oh boy, someone's already come up with the idea. It's all statted out, and all I have to do is pay $15 for a splat book, and it's all mine. That's a lot of time saved. And let's see, at minimum wage cost, that's less than 2 hours work. Could you have written like all 32 pages of the splat book in less than 2 hours?
Nope.
And there you go. So it was a working system. That's why I really hope 5th edition keeps up something like that, so the efficiency can continue once again. But let's see here. Yes, other news this week for me. We lost a person at work.
Like just got fired, or?
I'll say effectively scapegoated. There was very little other chance, in order to appease the corporate masters, than letting him go with very little to no notice. And this entire week, everyone's been scrambling to, try and make sure everything, covers for, this here. It's like, okay, he's no longer here, so, that's like 30 hours of work, 30 man-hours of work we got to cover this week. So who's going where to cover this work and doing that, and how does everything shift around?
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I really felt the loss, and it's like on Friday, I probably should not have gone into work. I was having some pretty nasty back spasms from moment one. The alarm clock rang for me in the morning, and it, back spasm, horrible. Just barely able to stand up in the shower, get myself to work. Just barely. I probably should have phoned in sick. But who's going to cover for me? It was already stretched as thin as possible. They couldn't lose another 6-7 man hours, by me not being there. It's just, it was just not feasible. So make sure I, start work by taking a half dose of medication and get going.
Well, that's admirable that you have such a work ethic. I don't know if people should be even expected, but That's definitely if you do.
Well, I respect at least 75% of my co-workers enough to say I don't want to put any of you in that sort of situation. The other 25%, whatever. If it was only them on that day, well, maybe I would have reconsidered. Phone in sick. But it occurred to me as I'm working. Maybe it occurred to me because, as I said, cheap back pain medication, or maybe just because I'm an introspective kind of guy. But it's like, this is like losing a party member in D&D. This is like trying to do like a 5-man dungeon in WoW with only 4 players.
Yeah.
Everyone's picking up the slack, and everyone knows it's extra difficult, and it's really hard to get to any real progress. There were days, at work this week, when I was working as hard as I could. Everyone was working as hard as they could. We were firing on as many cylinders as we could, so to speak, and it still felt like we were going absolutely nowhere. Like we were not making any progress. Everything we did was undone by something else going on. All our work was just maintaining status quo. It was only homeostasis for us. It was horrible.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it occurs to me, it's like, you know what though? It's been a long time since I experienced the loss of one member of a D&D group that had this much of an effect on the team.
Yeah.
The DM has always subtly scaled things back. It's like, I already lost 25% of the gaming group, like this one here. So maybe instead of 5 goblins attacking them, it'll only be 3 goblins.
Well, one thing that sometimes happens when you lose a party member is sometimes that's the trigger to a total party kill, and I suppose once that happens, that sort of overshadows that initial loss.
Well, you see that in WoW, you lose the tank in a fight and everybody starts going down.
Yeah.
Although, in my defense, I have been able to mage tank just a trash mob, and I've survived.
Yeah.
I think the hunter may have survived, but everyone else got wiped.
The hunter plays dead.
Yeah, the hunter feigned death. That was the only reason they survived. Yeah. But freeze, blink, blast. This goes off. Use this, arcane missiles. Everything goes off. Everyone starts dropping down. But I feel like I'm 10 feet tall. I am the mage tank.
But I guess, the situation we're sort of talking about is in between, where you lose bad enough that you lose an entire character, an entire member of the party, but you still somehow come through that fight, and you still cohere together as a party without necessarily picking up the next one.
Well, you're in the middle of dangerous terrain. You're not going to go around the corner and suddenly find another human fighter that just so happens to want to join your band.
Well, sometimes it happens, and I think the old, in some editions, the Dungeon Master's Guide recommends that the new character is 1 or 2 levels below the average level, just so that it doesn't suddenly infuse that. Because when you create a new character, you create them, like say you were level 5 when you stopped or whatever, you can create a very optimized 5th level character, whereas a 1st level character may have spent feats on toughness, for example.
They're not so focused, they're not so pure of style, so to speak. Yeah.
And toughness is not that good of at 1st level, toughness is really good.
I still think they should have combined it with a greater toughness feat, whereby it's equal to 3 hit points or your level, whichever is higher. That way you gain the added little effect every level. It doesn't feel quite so useless, because, you pick that up at level 20, bam, 20 hit points.
Yeah, so there's little tweaks you can do, but sort of by the rules as written anyways. Toughness is a less than optimal feat once you get to 5th level, so that new 5th level character is not going to choose that. And there are a few like that, not just the one, and there are a few other little choices that you can make. So you can make a really boss 5th level character that suddenly hops in and is better than the character you just
I didn't
lost.
have to suck for 4 levels to achieve this level of greatness.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So that's why you bring in a level 1 or 2 below.
Bring in a level 4 character sort of thing.
So the party still feels that impact of losing the character, even though that player gets to continue playing. I think that's...
Or mind you, that is one of the reasons I do like hirelings. It's like, okay, next time you were coming in, sort of thing, you'll have a new character. We'll give you the week to build up your new guy. You don't have to try and build him up on the fly. But, for the rest of the thing, because I don't want you to sit around feeling useless, you get to play the suddenly much more heroic than normal torchbearer, Pedro!
Yeah, I like that option too. That's fun.
And, that way if that character dies, so it's like, well, you're having a pretty rough night, and, at least it was only Pedro this time. So, there's the added fun of it in that sort of case. I do have a soft spot for the Dark Sun style, where everyone has 3 characters, and then you choose one to go out on the adventure, and the other 2 are off doing other things, because it is assumed you've got a busy life. It's not just about adventuring. You've got other things, buddy. And that way, I suppose, especially in 3rd edition sort of style, you can have like the wizard creating the magical items, and then, no, I'm going to send out the scion, and that way you have your arcane blasting capabilities. Well, not arcane, psionic blasting instead of arcane. And that way, you can still do the magic item creation stuff as you so want.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I would want to necessarily do all the paperwork for 3 different, especially 3 spellcasters.
Well, in Dark Sun, it was almost a matter if you have to. It was such a high lethality campaign.
Yeah, I suppose.
It saved you a lot of time to go with the added paperwork. Yeah. But, and it would just be like if you go up a level with your adventuring guy and one of your other 2 manages to go up a level. So you can either really max out one guy and have the other 2 at half level, or, work it so that you rotate them a little bit more evenly. Mm-hmm. And I dig that sort of style. I think there's some nice things you can do with that sort of style, like in the field versus, a diplomatic versus, a more research-oriented thing where everyone gets to play different sides.
Yeah.
It's that way it's like, oh, my fighter is suddenly kind of useless because I'm an optimized fighter, and we're in a library trying to find the secret of where the hidden cave is. Where is the hidden library so the researchers can go there? And so it's like, well, my fighter stands around guarding the books. It's like, no, you've got your backup, your researcher character, which is, we'll go Cleric of Bakab in this case. Mm-hmm. With a cloistered cleric style design. That way you get to be, I get to be useful for the next 2 hours of gameplay.
Well,
So there is that.
Yeah. I remember we used to play with the leadership feat. We used to, every once in a while someone would get a cohort and stuff.
Oh, yes. Those who want that, I think it's a very good thing. And it does allow you to go with some truly wonderful combinations. Especially when, your cohort is like the same, class as you, and you choose one of the, air quotes, better classes. Like the tier 1, you're just like, I'm a wizard, and then I have, like my support backup wizard. I have all the big nasty spells, but if you want a buff, well, just ask the little guy. So that's kind of nice. That sort of situation.
But I suppose, losing a character, though.
That's the thing is, it should, I think, feel like, it's like, wow, this has really gotten a lot tougher, missing the one person. Mm-hmm. So would you say, then, as like a DM, that's what you should be doing, is not backing off, like cutting down the amount of goblins, in the encounters that are coming up, just to make things feel tough, even if you maybe fudge a dice roll and they die a little earlier than normal, it still feels like, wow, we are really hitting a wall here, guys. We need more support.
Well, I've always, let me see, I do it a couple of different ways. As a DM, I do almost subconsciously adjust to what the players are doing. I don't think I fudge dice rolls, but sometimes I will make tactical decisions that are less than optimal, just depending on how I feel about how a fight is going. Like and I don't think that's not what that is my subconscious, my sort of, and I don't let me see, I don't see it as a good thing or a bad thing necessarily. It's just sort of how I play things by how they feel as a DM. I just go with how I feel the fight is going. On a more conscious level, I want to keep it fair. I want to keep that sense of, I want to give the PCs the chance to
avoid a total party kill.
Yeah, avoid it, and they can regulate what sort of challenges they take on, because sometimes you can't run away, or sometimes you can't do this or that. But basically, I like a game where it's PC driven. Of the difficulty level is PC driven. So if they say, we just lost a character, well, what are we going to do about it? Well, maybe we'll take an extra night to heal up that extra hit point, or get some extra spells, or we'll spend money on another hireling or 2 or 3.
Maybe the next fighter we'll all pool our resources together and get them full plate. That way, they're a little harder to hurt, sort of thing. We'll have a group party fun for this sort of thing.
So I like it being more player driven. And then if they decide that we're going to be reckless, we're going to push through anyways. Sometimes the campaign will push that a little bit because it's like a time-sensitive thing, or they have
I do try and avoid the time-sensitive stuff myself, just for that reason.
You don't want to do too much of that, but you want a little bit of pressure on them, just to keep them moving through the dungeon, but not too much, just so that they feel like...
Take 20 on every 5-foot square to make sure there's no traps, no secret passages. I got all the time in the world. I'm an elf. I get another 400 years of this before I start hitting the old age categories. Haha.
Although, like, I do enjoy a game that's as long as you do it right. Like, I don't want to just slow pace mechanically, like, roll wisdom check, roll spot check, move 5 feet, roll search check, move 5 feet, roll search check, roll wisdom check, roll spot check. Same thing every round. That gets a little bit tedious, but I do enjoy a game that's more like you're in the moment. You're in a dungeon. You're in a room of a dungeon, and you're a character, and you're sitting there, and you're scared, and it's dark, and it's damp, and what are you doing at that moment? Rather than just the next 2 minutes I'm going to spend flipping a thing until I get it.
Although I will note, from what I've played for Hero Quest, I have never had a party completely survive the first adventure out of 14. Those of you who don't know, Hero Quest was like a board game based in the Warhammer fantasy universe sort of thing. Very nice game. If you can find it, get it. I mean, this thing, has good resale value, great gameplay value. You can probably find PDFs of the stuff, and they don't make it anytime since like 94, so don't feel too guilty about illegally downloading a PDF of all the maps so you can play it yourself in whatever you can cobble up together. But I have noticed, it'd be like, oh, the elf dies out of the group, and then everyone sort of switches from we all go into the room and attack. Then they form up a little bit more methodical, like, okay, Barbarian has the most health, he goes in first, and then we'll put, the wizard into a nice secure spot. The wizard searches, for treasure, and that way if a wandering monster comes up, the monster can't automatically attack and kill the wizard in a single turn.
That's true, yeah, you get a little more, tense and a little more interested in the actual, like, the nitty-gritty, yeah. You don't make that charge into the room mistake
instead of 4 people going into a room, it's a single party going in, even if it's a 3-person party going in, sitting in this. Okay, you're watching here. You're watching here. Okay, the dwarf has got this. The dwarf, does this, searches out the lock. He goes out into the hallway first, and he's searching for the traps. He's searching for the secret doorways and all this, and it becomes a much more, role-based. In this case, the dwarf is most equivalent to a thief because they automatically start with, effectively the ability to detect and disarm traps a lot better than anyone else. And so it becomes, dwarf goes out, searches the hallway, makes sure no one hits, like a spear trap or, a hidden pit trap. And then, you got to have the barbarian close behind to come up in case they turn a corner and there's a monster there. And so in that case, whenever the one player has died, galvanized is maybe a good word to use. It galvanized the rest of the party into becoming a single team as opposed to 4 people running wild, each doing their own thing in a dungeon.
Yeah, I think galvanized means tempered by fire or something.
Yeah.
It's a process that you do to rubber, but I think it works because, it's subjecting it to stress in order to make it more
durable and tough. And I think it is an apt, use of term.
Sure.
But it definitely, the one lost there, and I gotta say, I hate losing the one. I mean, this is the first adventure out of 14. What does it say about the others if you lose a character in the first one, right? And yet, losing the one always seems to get everyone together as a group, and I've played it with you a few times. I've played it with my brothers, and every time it happens, everyone starts going from, we're all doing this, I want to go this way. It's like, no. Inform, line up, go, attack plan alpha. And I like seeing that. I hate having to lose, a player for, that to happen, but I like seeing the, we are a band of professionals sort of mentality hit in. And, what do you think about that then? The loss of one person, really making the others start standing in line and working as a group rather than just 4 individuals.
Well, I do like it, and you see that in fiction too, because sometimes, depending on the work, you might see a very important, the father might die. I mean, that's the father is the of your core group. The father's like a tank,
Yeah.
That's like losing your tank, and that's when the story begins. The parent dies, and then the Disney movie begins after that. Father, mother, whatever. So that's that's when the story begins. And it works.
The real story. I mean, the story's been happening ostensibly, but this is when it really comes in. When you have to change who you are, and the actual character progression starts going on. That's when the story starts, right?
Because you think about it, like the father is the competent one. The father's the one that holds the group together.
He was keeping everyone from dying the entire time.
Exactly. So you get that whole mythic cycle begins.
I would love to see Disney do like a dungeon adventure like movie where it's the dad dies sort of thing, or it's Disney, the dad gets poisoned and falls unconscious, and then it occurs to everyone else in the adventuring family, oh God, he was the only one keeping us from dying, and we're down in the middle of the death-filled horrible pit of nasty surprises. We're all doomed unless we get all our crud in one pile here. I would really love to see Disney do that, because I think they have both the chops to make it hilarious as well as heartwarming and professionally scripted. 'Cause let's face it, not every house that does animation has the same quality of writers. Although Hasbro could probably do that.
Actually, you know what? I was trying to think in my head of an example. Hamlet. Is how that works, because in Hamlet, the king is a strong guy, and he's got it all together. He's running his kingdom. He
was keeping his son from effectively going insane just by being the fatherly font of wisdom.
Yeah, and then he gets offed, and then that starts this whole sequence of events with Hamlet and his buddies. I don't know if Hamlet, because he ends up killing them, right? But
well, this was a different era, and it was royalty. You could kind of be friends with a person, still wind up killing them, and legitimately mourn their passing.
Because he kills Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He also kills Laertes and Polonius. By
the way, if you haven't read Hamlet, it's a very bloody... No, spoilers ended like 300 years ago. I'm sorry. If they were still producing it in the Globe, and it's like, oh, no, I'm not going to pay a shilling to go see it because I know how it ends. No, it's all too late for that. But yeah, if you haven't read Hamlet, it's a very bloody play. Probably if it was written today, you would not see it getting anywhere near as much publicity or play simply because of its level of violence.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I suppose, what made me think of that was The Lion King, because people said, The Lion King is... Well, it wasn't Hamlet. The Lion King, I think, is Macbeth or something like that. Or maybe it's a combination of both.
I don't recall any lions in either Macbeth or Hamlet.
But
maybe I skipped a chapter.
The father lion dies, and that's what...
Mufasa!
Yeah, that's what spurs the young lion into his journey of whatever it is that he does.
You ever seen the re-edited sequence where they get a bunch of photos of the whole thing, and it's, oh no, Mufasa's falling down, he's help me, brother, and Scar puts the hands on there and goes, long live the king, and it turns out he winds up pulling him up, and oh, thanks for the help, brother, and it's like, oh, that's actually kind of nice and heartwarming. But then the story ends, and it's not like, oh, the rest of the wonderful story just doesn't play out. So it's like, you kind of needed that death to happen.
And then Simba becomes a spoiled brat.
I'm pretty sure
he does anything for himself.
I'm pretty sure he would have gotten his lionic behind handed to him a few times. He would have learned a lesson or two that way.
Well, it could have been an okay story, I guess.
It would have been okay, but you wouldn't have had Timon or Pumbaa in there. You wouldn't have had the dark times happening. So technically... yeah, it's a bit of a trade-off, but it would have been a much shorter story and a less deep one. But it would have been nice to see Scar, like, okay, I want to be king, but I don't want to lose my brother, because he's my brother, and so he pulls him up, and it's like, oh, really, like, you need the bad guy to be the bad guy, and you need that death to happen to make the dark change occur. Mm-hmm. And so you could work that, in like the D&D sort of game, is without the death, without, like, the villain offing one of the guys, the story just doesn't unfold as dark and as like captivating.
Yeah. So as a DM, I don't know if this is I'm not saying do this, but it might be a fun. I don't know, like to imagine.
If it happens, like
you just happen to kill off the most powerful character in the first.
Well, it doesn't even have to be the most powerful character. It just has to be a character, and then you have to, like remind everyone, dude, he could have done that to any one of you because he's the big bad. Yeah. And that's where they go off training, and they find like the whatever, magical items that are powerful enough to whoop his evil ass.
I like the thought too. Like you could do almost a narrative scene towards the beginning of a campaign and have like one of the characters' mentors die on the table, like in even have a miniature there.
So you could have like like the the one like wizard, in training, have his mentor be struck down by the Death Knight, and just to have him say, strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can even imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Bam!
With the laser sword, or a plasma sword. No, what's Arcasma sword?
Well, I suppose you could call it that. Or you could just call it, the one weapon that is just, basic light. It doesn't get affected by anything other than living tissue.
Basic
the energy
light.
Weapon.
No, that's not a good name. You need a like a saber of light.
But as you said, it needs a better name for it then. So we'd have to call it, the positronic, Claymore. Yeah. I bet you everyone who heard that suddenly said, "I want a positronic Claymore."
Well, it sounds science fiction-y, but yeah, I'll take it. Yeah. A lightsaber doesn't sounds fantasy, actually. Now that I think about it.
Well, here's the fun thing, though, is if it's a positronic light, Claymore sort of thing going on with this, and it gets hit by lightning, if those of you who know your particle physics, massive bursts of gamma radiation. So,
electrons meeting positrons, you mean, and annihilating?
Yeah. So you kind of lose your positronic Claymore for a little bit. The lightning bolt doesn't hurt anyone, but you do have to suddenly start looking up the rules for gamma radiation poisoning.
Oh boy.
So wacky fun things happening that way.
Mm-hmm.
But you could use the concept of losing the mentor sort of thing to fuel it without actually losing the player that way. That said, just make sure you're losing the mentor for the guy who didn't have like a 17-page backstory of how important the mentor is. Otherwise, you've ruined everything. Now I got to burn this character. I'm leaving. Rage quit.
I like the thought too that the DM is very carefully sets up this scene where the one of the characters or multiple characters have mentors who are in a battle and sort of the intent is that the mentors get mown down or whatever, and there's a chance for the PCs to escape, and it's this is your chance. You've just seen your powerful mentor who's taught you everything you know and knows so much. They're way more powerful than you. You've just seen them killed by this
He got
monster.
Turned inside out. He's still technically alive, but there's no cure for this. No amount of hit point regeneration stopping this from being painful.
And there's always that chance that the player is going to be
I got a 1 in 20 chance of getting a critical hit. Let's do it.
You killed my bastard! Running at the monster.
And that's why you chop off a hand.
Okay. Yeah,
but that's another topic for another day.
Yeah, a hand is a member of the body team.
It's a very important part, too. I mean, you lose either lefty or righty, and, all of a sudden, things completely change.
But what about a red shirt? You see that in fiction from time to time.
It doesn't always have to be red shirts. I was actually watching a classic episode of Star Trek, and it was a blue shirt who died. Mm-hmm. The last person who died in the original series was a blue shirt, not a red shirt.
Yeah. In fact, I bet if you added them up, you'd probably find more other colored shirts than red shirts. But it's one of those things that gets stuck in your head, right?
There was a guy in a red shirt who died there too, so it was kind of even for the. Well, actually, I think the guy who was working the transport booth wound up dying. So I think it may have been a 2 red to blue ratio for that episode.
Okay, but I don't remember how the codes work exactly. But isn't security basically your fighters and your security and your guy who's supposed to do the shooting? Are they in red shirts?
That's the thing is they never had it too good in the original series about that sort of thing. So yeah, the security guys were always in red, but then again, so was Scotty and his crew of engineers. Yeah. So maybe in the future, there's an extra shade of red that we can't distinguish because with our primitive, land-based eyes, once you go up into outer space, you see all these extra million shades of colors.
Only Geordie LaForge can see it.
Well, hopefully he can, other people besides him. Otherwise, it gets really, annoying. It's I thought you were part of engineering. It's no, dude, phasers. I'm guard. Blue was science officers in that case, Spock, and in this case, the geologist in that episode winds up biting the dust.
And Captain Kirk wears a yellow shirt. Does that mean he's a captain, or does that mean...
I think it's command and some other sort of thing going on.
Maybe administration or something?
Because Chekhov and Sulu both had the yellow shirts as well.
And they were kind of driving, right?
Well, Sulu was the pilot and Chekhov was navigation, so... Pilot and co-pilot, really. I mean... From what I've learned growing up with my family, if you're sitting in the shotgun seat, then you have the maps and you are telling people when they're supposed to turn, and it's okay, it should be at this light here, you got to make sure you're to the left. So I imagine that's what Chekhov and Sulu were doing, just, through keyboard commands.
Okay. Okay, so that's established. So that
Uhura was in red though, so communications was also red. It was very poorly set up.
It might have been just what went well with their eyes or something, you know.
So okay, you get your choice, and you know, like Leonard Nimoy's like, oh, this blue looks distinguished and intellectual. I'll go with that. And Captain Kirk's like, ooh, got to go with a nice, you know, like near tan yellow, make me look all buff.
Actually, yeah. In the case of like the triad, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, I think the yellow, blue, I think that looks pleasing. I think it's a good combination, and that blue color works well on both Spock and McCoy, right?
Well, they were always doing that tete-a-tete between them, you know, like the fighting between, and yet they're the same color, you know, and they're supposed to be like learned individuals, like pure, you know, logical Spock, you know, and the, you know, the trained medical professional Bones McCoy, and yet they were still, you know, like constantly clashing. So I like how they had the same shirt color, and yet they still couldn't like cohesively aim themselves, you know, like towards a, you know, more focused future until everything got bad. They assumed one person's dead or gone missing in another dimensional realm, and that's when everything sort of, you know, like cohesifying there.
Did Captain Kirk ever? He died in one of the movies.
Yeah.
Then he sort of came back-ish.
Thanks to a time back. I guess it's technically time travel sort of thing. He was stuck in like one of the weird time loops, so he undied.
There's another version of him that came back in a different movie, but he was younger. So.
And then they rebooted the whole darn thing, so it doesn't matter at all who died how many times.
Probably not really.
Spock really did die. He came back. Thank you, Genesis Planet.
So,
but that was a big thing in the series. Is the death of Spock is still, you know, regarded. I mean, spoiler alert there.
Right.
But the death of Spock is still something that gets a lot of people watching the original series. You know, it's like the movies. Spock dies. It's just so harsh. And even though, you might know, it's like, oh, he comes back in the next one, sort of thing. Genesis Planet and Genesis Device. Do you remember that? It's like, oh yeah, I remember hearing that. But no, it still hits you. And they have the whole eulogy. They shoot him out into space and all that sort of thing. And it's a big thing. The loss of especially that's a main character as, you know, Mr. Spock. I mean, that really, you know, hit home. And I remember when I was young, you know, like Spock was awesome. Why did he die? I think I may have cried when I saw the movie.
Yeah, I believe that. And I suppose the beginning half of the Star Trek 3, although it's called The Search for Spock, so you kind of expect they're gonna find Spock, but it is felt that absence and lack, that he is not providing his skills to the crew.
And that's the thing is in the original original movie or two movies it was, when they're getting everyone back together, you know, and they get, you know, Admiral Kirk instead of just Captain, he demands that his second in command has to be a Vulcan. If I do recall correctly, the Vulcan meets a very nasty problem. Yes, it was the Voyager one, the Verger. It meets a very nasty teleporter accident.
Oh yeah. Talk about killing someone off early in the movie.
And well, that's okay, because Spock winds up coming back from his deep meditation sort of thing, and he's like super Spocky mindset sort of thing, so it's like hard for him to integrate in because he's been doing the monastic lifestyle.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like Kirk knows he needs, you know, the other person to balance him, and which is another good aspect to look at too for the thing. Could any science officer, you know, be, you know, a good second in command for the group? Yeah, anyone. But Kirk knew enough about himself. He says, no, I'm kind of impulsive and crazy at times. I need someone to tell me the odds. I need, you know, I need Spock to balance me. And if I can't get Spock, I'll get, you know, Diet Spock, you know, any other Vulcan sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, to have that to balance me out. So you could even look at that from the perspective of the party. Without the one person there to help provide a counterbalance of personalities, maybe they start doing stupider things. Maybe that's why they keep going in one more room. It's because, you know, they lost the healer, and the healer's not longer there to say, I'm running low on spells, you're running low on hit points, maybe we should not keep attacking, you know, these you know, filth-covered rats anymore, and just go out of here and have a good night's sleep. It's like, well, we lost the one guy, but, you know, I think we might be able to get just enough gold for, you know, like a raise dead spell. He was second level. He'll come back as first, but just one more room. No loot in that one. Just one more room until everyone winds up dead. And so you can look at it as a nice personality balance rather than just like a member for the party's role. And I think that goes back to like the whole father thing that we talked about earlier. You know, the father dying and he's being like the core part. It doesn't necessarily need to be the core. It can just be one half of like a seesaw of personalities. Without the balance to work everything out, it gets all lopsided. You can't work a seesaw with just one person. Unless you're trying to do the surfboard thing in the middle, but that's how you fall off and crack your head. Don't do that.
I suppose that the Vulcan replacement is a similar idea to that, to a player being like, well, I was the healer before. So
I don't want to play the Spock character. I am so tired of him. Okay, I'll play another Vulcan, but he's not going to be Spock. I want to try a different personality. I want to do the half, thing. I want to go full Vulcan this time. Yeah. Oh, teleporter accent. Oh, you guys are doing this to me on purpose, aren't you? Fine, I'll go through my book and I'll get the Spock character out.
Yeah, there you go.
I hope you're happy with it. I'm going to play him super monastic and weird now for the next half of this, adventure, just 'cause, okay? Show you guys playing Spock again.
Although, I used to play in games where we didn't really... I think you were involved in some of these. We didn't think too much about that whole four-man or woman.
You have to have a cleric. You got to have some high-damage person. You got to have a tank sort of thing.
Yeah, and it was more about just what everybody... And I prefer this style of play, what each person sort of felt like playing. And if two people wanted to play fighters, well, that was fine.
Well, I mean, that is the best advantage of D&D.
Yeah, D&D works.
And other tabletop games that you can have that system work. I mean... If I think back to, was it 8-Bit Theater, the parody homage sort of thing that they did for the Final Fantasy, the original Final Fantasy game for the Nintendo. For one of the first comics is the Black Mage is reading the Nintendo Power magazine. And he says one of the best, apparently end game fights is like with 4, white mages, and that's the equivalent of like everyone going into the game playing the cleric. So you got 4 clerics in your party, and he's like, that's ridiculous. Spoiler alert, it winds up actually working out. Hooray! But, I mean, if you were to actually play the original Final Fantasy game being nothing but, black mages, being nothing but white mages, you're going to have a hard time. I mean, you could start by playing, 4 fighters, and you do well at the start of the game. I mean, lots of health, lots of, toughness, or sort of thing. But you start losing out the firepower as the levels progress. You don't have the nuke spell, to instantly eradicate 2 or 3, lower end guys. You got to slog it through everything.
Yeah.
And take it from a guy who's played a fighter in WoW. That's basically what your mentality becomes. I got to go from A to B. I'm just going to kill everything in my way, even though I'm moving super slowly. I'm just still killing everything because I can't blink, I can't teleport, I can't do it. I have to go from A to B. I can't stealth and dodge out of the way. And it just becomes your mentality that way. And so if there was something else there, do with it like another player sort of thing. You're playing the rogue, the sneak and peek style as goes. I'm moving a little slower, but I'm sneaking everywhere. I don't have to fight anyone. Maybe pick a pocket or two as I go by. Ha ha ha. But it definitely does impact your style by changing up your core group. But that's not a bad thing in D&D. You could I have played a campaign where everyone was a cleric. Different gods, different styles, but everyone was a cleric. And in D&D, if you want to have everyone be, wizards, you can make that campaign still viable. You don't have to... Well, actually, it makes it a lot easier, because that means you're fighting kobolds for much, much longer time. But yeah, I mean, that's a great part. But that said, you do lose one character, and it does change all the dynamics of it.
Yeah. Well, I remember playing, I played a wizard one time, and my wizard died or whatever, and I was like, okay, make a new character. And I probably, looking back on it, this is probably not the best decision to make, but I was like, okay, well, I don't want to die again, so instead of a wizard, I'm going to be the fighter guy with lots of hit points so I don't die. And that's okay in some, sure.
There's a lot of flavors in D&D. I mean, you can try being, a fighter McFighterson.
But the proper solution is probably just better party dynamics. Because my wizard died because he ran into a room without everybody else. And
I remember losing a lizard man, to a Tendriculos. Because the party wouldn't come up alongside.
Those Tendriculos, those are deadly.
Yeah, I think they got the challenge rating wrong on those things.
Yeah. Or it's just that if you just don't have a certain, because they're basically they're physically extremely powerful. So if you do get up close to them, you have no way of, like, magic or something of pelting them from a distance. Yeah, basically you can't fight them.
If the rest of the party had joined me, I mean, this thing was going to wind up eating our horses if we just left them out there as we go into the dungeon. Oh, well. There goes one character there. But if I, what happened to that party after I lost my guy? Because my guy was effectively the melee combatant.
Well, is that not the campaign where you placed him with a, a chronomancer?
No, actually, because you were doing that one with a two-party system where there was two active groups, and I was in each one. And in the one, I was the elven chronomancer, and the other one, I was the wicked, vicious fighter, like of tooth and claw.
Right, but you only played in one after that, right?
Yeah, I decided, no, I'm going to have this, I got studies to go to. I'm in university. I should probably, do a little bit more reading in a book that doesn't start with, like Player's Handbook or, for the D20 system. So, I focused on just my chronomancer, and I'm not certain, how did the party manage to survive much after, like, with the loss of the one, big fighter?
I think they did, because I think I had two groups going for a while, but I can't remember.
I do recall hearing some stuff about them having a harder time, on the whole thing, because I was the one that took the damage.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the first time he got hurt. It was, however, the last time. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he was a very well optimized fighter. I think at that point he was still, just working through the hit dice for the lizard folk sort of thing, and claw bite was all he really did.
And when I was playing D&D at that time, I didn't really pay attention to things like, I knew I vaguely had a concept of CR, because CR was, every monster came with a CR.
The challenge rating,
So I was like, okay, what level's the party? Well, they're about level 3, or level 4.
Challenge rating 3 against them.
Just, look up in the book. Oh, Tendriculus challenge 6. They can.
Or it might have just been that was a change in tactics sort of point. You get to that point, and I mean, you encounter creatures with different abilities. The Tendriculus has a fast healing ability, which I don't think they were able to overcome.
Yeah, there's that. And another thing I guess to tangent off on Tendriculus is
Tendriculosi?
Tendriculosi. I've been on both sides of the screen for encounters with a creature like that, and I think it really makes a difference how the DM describes it, because sometimes it's like the DM's like, oh, he's hidden, and I think you should have...
And then all of a sudden, bursting up out of the swamp waters comes a massive beast, flailing, limbs of plant matter, and a horrible maw that somehow divides the animal and plant kingdoms together as it screams bloody, hungry murder.
Yeah, and the difference is whether the character is directly on top of it when that happens, or maybe 20 feet
I make
away.
a ride check. I use my my animal rearing skills. Can I try and domesticate it, really quickly?
Because I feel like if you... Well, I think we always had spot checks, I'm not sure. But if you don't give a character a chance to notice and they just get grabbed, that character is gone, unless you have, resurrection or something.
Like Pac-Man. It's just wah, 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 wah.
Yeah. And maybe the rest of the party will figure something out, but yeah, usually that's...
What if you worked in a game sort of style where it was like Pac-Man? You had multiple lives.
Yeah, that's possible.
Because I have seen one or two, I don't know if they were supposed to be a full-fledged comic or just the guys notes, where it was like a D&D world sort of thing based on the concept of WoW, where you die and then you just kind of come back, at the altar of resurrection sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, the monsters were just absolutely frightened stiff of these sentient beings that you just can't kill. They keep coming back. You've killed them, and they're back again. Mm-hmm. Sure, they have different armor because the armor stays with the body sort of thing. But yeah,
that would be weird if you could basically line up the same bodies that are the same person in a row.
We went down to the cold freezer. We're keeping the heads of all the heroes we're killing. I swear to goodness, there's a 6-pack of this guy. He's just not quit. I don't know where he's getting the funds to buy the armor, and weapons every time, but he just keeps coming back. What are we gonna do?
Do you remember what happens in D&D if you use the raised ed requires most of the body.
50%, 51% sort of thing.
And probably, I would say probably the head has to be, at least most of the head has to be with it too. Something like that.
I think if you're just missing the head, you could probably get the rest of it, and then it comes back.
Okay.
Then you get your resurrection sort of thing, where it's just a loss of a level, and you need a part of the body, like a finger is enough. And true resurrection, all you need is their name.
Yeah. So what happens to the body when you cast each one of those spells, do you know?
Well, you use the body in the first one, the raised dead, and the body kind of like repairs itself up, and then up you come minus a level.
If his head is in the monster's meat locker,
it's just a non-viable head. It becomes you can't even like talk with dead with that thing apparently.
Okay, because the soul has been
it's back on the mortal plane. You know, the mortal coil is still going on.
Interesting. But in theory, you could create a whole skeleton of first the head and then raised him up and then
wouldn't that be a nice trick? Is you get it with a campaign? It's like, okay, I'm going to play easy mode for you guys. We've got somebody spent 7.5 years creating the magical item for the altar of true resurrection. You die, you can come back with this. They got a priest who will say your name once a day. If you're dead, you pop back up here. No loss of level. You're just naked, sort of thing. And then later on, you wind up fighting a flesh golem, which is composed of parts of just you. Or the entire party just all cobbled together.
Oh, yeah.
That's a nice, impressive visual style going on there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to put a note in that one. That's a nice campaign little idea with a nice little twist going on there.
I mean, you don't even need to have the raised dead thing in there. As just throw it, just have the creature be like, here's a flesh golem made of all your parts, and whoa, is it from the future or something? Because it could be.
I recognize that scar. That was from the time when we fell down the pit trap, and there was a poison dart trap at the bottom of the pit trap, and we got hit by the poison dart after falling. Do you remember that? Yeah, that's where the body parts came from. It's that pit trap that got us all that one time. We're going to call this the pit trap flesh golem.
Exactly.
There you go. So yeah, make a search check to identify which body it is, and what sort of scars look familiar to you.
I like the thought too that some a healer somewhere could be just collecting body parts from adventurers as they the adventurer comes in. Well, gonna have to amputate, but fortunately I have a what do you call it?
A resurrection. So I only need this much here.
So so we'll get rid of that gangrene and we'll just cast a restoration and get a brand new leg. And meanwhile he keeps the leg. How do
you describe the limb coming back? By the way, does it just kind of materialize in like a transporter, woo, sort of thing, or does it just does it kind of just grow out, sort of thing, like infant's hand coming up and then maturing, or does it just kind of burst forth like what you see in what was it, with the Namex in Dragon Ball, where the guy concentrates really hard and all of a sudden, bam, he punches his own fist out of his shoulder stump. Which, okay, mind you, he wasn't that big and tough because he lost his arm in the first place, but that's a pretty badass way to come back from a loss like that.
A couple of answers. There is an illustration in the player's handbook of a priest restoring a leg, and I think it kind of looks like that, the Star Trek.
It's just kind of waving back in, sort of thing, or...
Yeah, but maybe it depends on the deity. Depends on the healer and their deity.
Also, a martial deity has to punch your way, punch your body part back out of the stump, man.
And the nature deity would be kind of grow.
It grows, you get it all just kind of grows out at once, sort of thing, or the baby thing, and it matures.
And then Baka, a magic deity, would be arcane energy, sort of materializes and sparkles.
First, it's just a glowing hand, and then it just solidifies, and I kind of like that. It does customize things up a little bit nicer. It's no, don't bring me to that, healer. I really don't like what happens. He cuts the stump off and the blood goes spurting out, and then the blood always kind of coalesces into a hand, and my hand is discolored for a week, and it's really creeping me out every time you do it.
I like that. The blood healer, the blood. That's cool.
It's you get a little guillotine just for the arm stump to chop it off, and the blood comes spurting out again, and it just keeps on going through the vein pattern of what's supposed to be there as the thing heals, and then the blood goes everywhere, because there's blood vessels everywhere, and then it coalesces into a bloody hand, and then it's you're not going to want to lift up anything more heavier than 5 pounds with this for the rest of today, but you should have the flesh in there properly by tomorrow morning. You're good to go.
I like that thought. Yeah, that's an enjoyable way to do it. flavor-wise.
And it does keep the players from reaching, I don't think it's trapped. I'll just reach in here and grab the jewel on the other side of the wall. Oh, there goes my arm.
Well, it's funny, like, D&D, they sort of discourage, like, the rules are like, yeah, don't mess with the player's limbs. Like,
and
not
yet,
too much.
one of the grandest adventures, a spoiler alert, I suppose, was the Temple of Elemental Evil, where you have the slightly larger than hand-shaped opening sort of thing where you can like reach in, and unfortunately what's in there is a sphere of annihilation, so you reach into like effectively an empty hole in the universe as your hand just suddenly ceases to be. Oh, you reach in, you can't feel anything, you don't feel anything, you've come out and there's nothing left there, just bloody stomp. No saving throw, because original Dungeons and Dragons, that's no.
Yeah.
I think Gygax was laughing for years on that trap. Every time it happened, there's another chuckle from, I got another one.
Yeah. I was saying, like, the rules sort of say, well, treat each character as a discrete unit. So, like, when the character takes damage, it's just to their whole being.
A little scruff mark here and there.
Rather than chopping off limbs and stuff like that, which admittedly is pretty complicated when it comes to, like, rolling on tables to see what you lose.
But I think there was a lot of loss in that in 3rd edition. I loved 3rd edition, but what I missed the most was some of the weird things, like they had like magical eyes back then in 2nd edition. 20 different magical eyes, but what you have to do first is lose an eye on purpose or by accident. So one of the greatest things in the Dragonlance campaign setting was the Silver Arm of Urgoth. Which allows you to actually forge dragon lances, hence the name of the setting. It effectively gave you the feat for that, and so if there wasn't the one-armed blacksmith, oh hey, yeah, this slots on the right hand, hooray! You're not like two left hands sort of thing going on. It works, and then he winds up forging it. It becomes very important for him to have lost the hand.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely
entire
a lot
arm,
of
actually,
storytelling possibilities in the loss and reattachment of limbs.
Plus, how do you know you're playing in a pirate campaign setting if no one has a hook? No one's got a peg leg going on.
Yeah.
So, there are some very good reasons to potentially lose a limb, and just to maintain style, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm. And people say, oh, well, there's healing magic, but not everybody can afford healing magic.
No, which is really dickish when you think about it, because it's like, well, I'm not an adventurer, but the priest is sitting around there, it's like, well, I guess I'm going to go to bed. No one wanted any healing stuff today, so I guess I just won't cast it. He doesn't go out and try, have a long line of, lepers who are losing body parts and people that need healing. He's not blowing out every spell every day, and you have to convince him that you should go cut to the front of the line because you got to go back out into the field and get hurt again. It's like, no, he's just kind of waiting around, beggars in the street. Oh, I'm so hurt, and no, it's like, wow, all the clerics in like 3rd, 2nd, 1st edition, they are dicks for not going out and just healing people every day using the utmost of their divine magical abilities. Which is actually why I like 5th edition, is it says the people, the clerics that can actually cast, the spells, they are very different, very unique. You're not going to find like a dozen of them in every temple. Okay, yeah. And so it explains why you have, the leper who's, on that proto-skateboard, I suppose is the term, when you see the guy who's missing both his legs as he's kind of moving around on the trolley.
I don't know what you call that.
I'm going to call it a proto-skateboard, because I know there's probably been at least one occasion in an adventuring group where a guy makes his escape, it's like, I jump down on the skateboard sort of thing, I pick up, the beggar, and I have him direct me in the instructions as I skateboard away from the guards.
Yeah.
It's happened. I won't bet money on it, but I know deep in the core of my being that's happened in at least one adventure. Somewhere out there.
Yeah, sure. I hope.
And that's how they made a new friend in NPC, and that became the cook? I don't know. I'm making this up now.
Sure.
Yeah.
How did we get where we got?
I don't know. Tangents. Wonderful, wonderful tangents.
I think we're on the theme of losing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think though you
losing
can compare.
People.
Yeah, you can. You should be able to compare, especially in like a tabletop role playing game of losing like a person. The same as like losing a hand or a foot. It should really feel like you are suddenly like missing a very important piece. Otherwise, like what good was that person, right?
Yeah. Well. And I tried to get on red shirts. Is that just the wrong way to handle it? Like to just kill off a a relatively unimportant character just for the sake of demonstrating the power of the bad guy?
I
willingness to commit evil?
say, as a DEM sort of thing, that I would announce to the players, like, okay, listen, I do want to show how bad these guys are. So every once in a while, you're going to lose a couple of your hirelings. Something's going to happen. You're going to lose some hirelings. But here's what I'm going to meet you halfway on this. Any hireling you come up with a name is immune to the sudden, like, oh, you come back and they're dead rule. So if you flesh them out enough, they have immunity to this event. That includes, like horses and pack animals. So if you manage to name your pack mule, it's not going to suddenly find itself devoured by were-cougars. Or dire cougars or whatever the heck is attacking around here. It's not going to happen because you invested the time. And these nameless hirelings that die, their death will not affect your reputation at all, so you won't have to suffer like charisma penalties because no, don't go adventuring with him. As a hireling, he like 3/4 of all his hirelings die off every week. So I'd meet them halfway. Say, okay, you come up with the extra initiative. They're immune to this thing. Otherwise, I do want to show like the evilness of the bad guys without actually killing you guys off every week. So yeah, this is a potential thing that happens.
I don't know. I might.
Does that sound fair?
I might not. I think that's a reasonable way for a DM to run his or her campaign. But I don't think I would do it that way. Just because I don't like the meta nature of it. Although there's lots of meta things in D&D, but I just wouldn't want the players to get too upset about like, oh God, you keep killing my guys off. Like, what do you have against that? Why can't I have any good hirelings? Yeah.
I haven't had anything but hardtack in a week. Why did you kill off my chef?
Well, here's how I would handle something because I realize that is a problem and that players can hit them can hit them hard if you take away a hireling or even a cohort or a animal companion or something like that. The way that you handle that is you don't handle it necessarily lightly. Like you have to give them that when you say you come back and your hireling has been brutally murdered or something like that. You have to see that as an opportunity for them to express their character. And so, yes, they're going to be sad and they're going to want to react, and you have to give them some sort of outlet then at that point, say, okay, your hireling has just been brutally murdered. What does your character do about it, or how does that make your character feel?
Well, describe it a little bit better like that, like Nameless, the scout who was adventuring beyond, just to make sure everyone's going down the right path. You haven't heard from him in a few hours. As you get to the other side of the one stream you cross, you find him strung up, in amongst 3 trees. The intestines all over one way, and like the arm is being vivisected out on the other side there. And it's all still one cohesive piece, but not in the form it should be. Yeah. What do you do? How do you react? Yeah, it's guaranteed dead though. Don't worry about them still being alive. It's not that horrible. And that way you really set up like, oh God, what sort of land have we gotten ourselves into now? This guy got horribly butchered in the span it took us to catch up to his scouting.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of the way not to do it, because I think there is a way, like just sort of...
the dragon breathes fire and kills.
Yeah, roll the
4 of your henchmen.
4 of your henchmen, and sort of... I don't know, it depends on the group, but if you just sort of leave it hanging, just say yep, your cohort's dead. You can roll up a new one if you like.
When you get to town, hire another one, same stats.
That feels a little... not quite right to me. Like that feels like
doesn't seem very heroic of them to keep losing those hirelings. I'll say that.
But actually, the way I want to put it is, I want to give the player the opportunity to come up with whether he cares about those hirelings, because there is maybe the player feels that way. Maybe it's like, oh, I'll just roll up a new one. Yeah, blah blah blah. I'm a ferocious, heartless warrior. And I may be good, but I don't have a heart anymore because I've been hurt too many times.
I've lost too many companions on the battlefield in this many wars.
So it's like just another one.
That's why I don't bother to learn their names. It's just too much for me now.
Exactly. So you want to give the character, or the player, the chance to make that decision for their character as to how they're reacting, rather than just say, yep, roll up a new cohort, your cohort's dead. I mean, I guess it's a fine line to walk, because you want to give them that space to role play and describe what happens to their character, but let's see, you want to give them space, so you don't want to do too much describing. You want to give them just the facts, but at the same time, you don't want to lead them into a not caring position by saying.
And that's happened. I mean, there have been times it's like I would not dare, like bring in hirelings sort of thing, because it's like, well, they're just gonna die.
Yeah.
It's just, like no, they're just, it's not worth it. It's not worth the time and the hassle to hire them.
And
even if I don't wind up paying them or I loot the body afterwards for all the gold I've given them.
Well, that kind of makes sense from a role-playing perspective, because maybe the character realizes that they go into danger all the time, and that's a factor they have to think about. But also, at the same time, they go into danger. They're going to need that extra help, even if it is possible that their hireling will die. They need that extra support, even if it's not like they're not fighting the battles for them, but at least it's support. It's a support character. So I don't know.
Well, it's the thing. I think there comes a certain point when you can afford not to just leave your horses outside of the hole in the ground you're going to go adventuring into, and that you can have a few people out there to tend to your horses at the end of every day. Quartermaster to make sure your weapons are all sharpened and your armor's properly donned every day. And if you can afford that sort of thing, it's called spreading the wealth. It's called not being the 1% that's hoarding it like some sort of dragon.
Yeah, and if you're like an honest and sort of semi-good person, then you might apprise them of the danger beforehand and say, are you sure you want to do this, and here's an extra hazard pay. But at the end of the day, that can be their choice.
On the other hand, what does hazard pay really mean if they're dead to not spend it?
Well, that's
it's too bad. I can't give him the 5 platinum pieces he earned for almost the entire week's worth of hazard pay because now he's dead.
That's the question the Baron always asks himself when he hires the adventurers to go kill the goblins.
That's why you don't get the money till after you've killed them and come back.
Exactly. It trickles down.
Although, if you were a proper knight of the realm with some sort of minor nobility title, you might be able to get some pre-financing on the whole thing, just to make sure that the Baron can't be accused of sending his potential political rivals into certain death.
Yeah, you could do something like that. A little diplomacy check to swing things your way a little bit.
The royal family of my very minorly royal family would very much appreciate it if you treated me with respect on this, and by clearly supporting me, you will have our favor in the court matters, of course. And then all of a sudden, hey, you're into role-playing scenario. How did that happen?
And then you go to the goblins and you say, okay, Mr. Goblin King, here's how it is. My very minor royal family can help your family
gain actual legitimacy as creatures of the realm. It will require some taxes, but a lot less people coming to kill you. There's a bit of a relocation sort of thing. Fortunately, underneath my castle, there's a large cavern complex. We can set up a trade system going on. You can be fairly, nice and self-secured that way.
Perfect.
How are you at mining mushrooms? we want a nice, unique export going on here. And thus, you gave birth to the Diplomancer.
Yeah. Well, I've seen... Well, did you ever play... what is it called? Kingmaker?
Kingmaker?
For Pathfinder?
No, I did, however, play a large amount of the Planescape Torment, where with the right stats, you can talk your way out of all except, I think, 4 fights in the game.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you can, make sure you can either run or, just say, no, don't fight me because here's a list of perfectly reasonable excuses.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a minor spoiler for Kingmaker. But,
okay.
Probably not all groups are going to go the way. But basically, we ended up with tribes of kobolds working for us, harvesting, it might have been mushrooms. I think it was beets of some kind. I can't remember. I think it was
beet shrooms.
Yeah, maybe beet mushroom hybrids. Sugar beets or something. And because you make a kingdom in Kingmaker, and each of the players is assigned a sort of a role as a member of the council.
So it's kind of like the Birthright campaign setting.
Yep, yeah, it's similar to
Dig
that.
it.
And then, we would manage, all the different, we had our own kind of capital, and there's, I think it's humans and, the fantasy mix, the D&D, humans, halflings, dwarves, elves, in the percentages, mostly humans. And then, they were dotted around the countryside. There was kobolds and goblins and other things, and, different rival kobold tribes. And we had... I think you have like in D&D, you have the option of, slaughtering them all if you wanted to.
Well, it's D&D. That's kind of a default option, yes.
But it also, they like to give you the option, if you wanted to, there's a little write-up in the adventure. If you talk to the goblins, you can set up a little trade agreement where they're harvesting these beets for you, and they eat them too. And I can't. Is it beets? I think it's beets. Some kind of magic beet that's addictive to them. But they could eat as many as they wanted or something like that.
So are these addictive to which species then?
Kobolds.
So the kobolds get addicted to them. I wonder if you could find some way to get the goblins to be growing the beets that are addictive to the kobolds, and have the kobolds growing something that's addictive to the goblins, and then you're effectively a huge drug dealer. Keeping them both in your thrall and getting the money off the trade for both ways.
I think we must have ended up killing the goblins, because I don't remember having them work for us in any capacity. But I remember we definitely had the kobolds, as part of our kingdom.
That's the advantage of being lawful evil, is you can sign a trade contract with a lawful evil creature and not expect to have your back stabbed automatically, provided that was in the small print. So yeah, I mean, that's why kobolds have a much better survivability on a larger scale than, say, a lot of the other nefarious humanoids.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But here's a perspective then. By gaining the kobolds, it's effectively the opposite of a death. You gain the extra one. Mm-hmm. And that gives me flashbacks to the Sunken Citadel, where a lot of the player groups wound up having Meepo, the little kobold there. Mm-hmm. Just join effectively with the party one way or another. Some of them were forcing him through all the doors first and in the hallways because they didn't have a rogue. Other ones were actually utilizing him as an information, sage source, as he gives information to this way is goblin territory. This is, over here is the bad spot here to avoid this spot. We got dangers this way. So yeah, what would you think about that? The gaining of a person,
gaining.
Of a temporary NPC.
Yeah, I wanted to mention this also in context of things like the the computer role playing game, where you gain one after another, and if you might have a party of I don't know how many, 12 or 20 or something like that characters. Just as you progress through the game, you just make more friends, and you just gather a bigger and bigger party. And you don't always take the whole party together on the same.
Which is a shame, because I'm playing the Marvel Avengers Alliance, and I have all but maybe 5 characters in there, and I'm only allowed to take 3 with me into a fight. One of which is my agent. I would just love to just stormtrooper everything with all the heroes just marching, just boom, boom, boom. I have them all. They're part of the stuff. Otherwise, they're 8 of them are using Quinjets flying off doing missions elsewhere for resources. I would just love everyone else just joining in, just massive. Oh no, villains attacking! You know what? I got 40 characters. They're all everywhere. They just sweep the streets. Done. No worries.
Yeah.
Demons attacking? No. We fight them back to the hell portal, and then we use all our magic people just to right up the backside. None of this. I gotta have 2 other people with me, and that's it.
I have to say, of all the rewards that you can gain, you gain experience, you got a level, you got some treasure. Of all of those things in a game, I think the one that feels the best for me is when you, that screen that says, so-and-so has joined your party, you have another party member.
Especially when they're the secret party member, sort of thing the Final Fantasy 1 Go-Go has joined the party, and it's oh wow, this guy's completely, off the hook, and it's completely so different. Oh yeah, I got the secret one. Whew.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, there's no other reward like that, gaining a new. It's a funny thought because I've never really thought of it too much before, but yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons I like Shadowrun is they have contact levels and all that, and you can gain them for use. Let's say you need a fence. You've got some nice hard. Don't ask where you got all of these cyber arms from. Suffice to say, you've got 17 left arms, all cyber, arms. You want to get rid of them for a little cash. You don't have a fence for that sort of thing. Well, you contact, your fixer who gets in contact with this sort of thing. He's got a fence just for, body legging for the cybernetic sort of thing. You meet the guy, you make a good deal with him, they become a level 1 contact. You schmooze with them a little bit, you go on a run pro bono for them, bam, level 2 contact, a buddy. I would really like to see, as in a lot of other games, this sort of thing, quantified as to, here's some guidelines for how close this person is, how you make allies within the game, and using allies and gaining audience with these powerful people as the reward. So, instead of, the thing starting off with, you're sitting in a tavern, and it's Elminster's tavern, and there's, a dungeon underneath, and he pays people to go down and try and survive. And he's asking you personally whether or not you want to go. It's no, you work it the other way around. It's you go on this stuff here, you make a couple friends, who happen to know Elminster, they put in a good word, next thing you know, you're being summoned to an audience with the Magister himself, sort of thing. And then, congratulations, the treasure was kind of poor on all that, but now you're actually having tea with the grandest Magister in the land. Make sure your pinky is sticking out. Don't look like some sort of crudite.
I don't know. You take it to an extreme when you say Elminster, because there's sort of
that's the thing is there was an adventure bit where it starts off with Elminster has a bar.
Okay.
And and there's a well in the middle of the bar. You can go down there and there's monsters down there and all that, and it's weirdly ridiculous.
Yeah, because I'm not sure how I feel about if I were to get a screen that said, Elminster has joined your party. Because I'd be oh, okay, well, I guess Elminster's just going to win everything now.
How about this? Elminster has joined your contact list.
Yeah,
so
I like the contact
you're in a
list.
situation where it's we just can't get into this horrible dungeon. We can't even get past the front gate. I mean, what's going on here? And so you're bummed. You go back, to Waterdeep, wherever the heck it is he winds up spending, most of his time.
Okay.
And you're there, and then, you're doing some downtime. The one guy's researching. It's well, you know what? I'm going to take Elminster out to lunch, sort of thing here. There's a wonderful cafe, sort of thing. I'm going to take him out there, and I'm going to see, you've been around 2,000 years. Do you recall this when it was an actual, building sort of thing? He's yeah, you got to put a silver ring in the area in the center. It dissolves the silver ring, but it opens the door. So bring a couple of rings if you want to go in and out a couple of times. And then all of a sudden, you don't need to do the research. He gives you the answer because you've got the connection. I suppose if you want, you can think of it as a magical item. Once per month, you expend so much, gold, in, components, and it gives you an answer. And so, you bypass one challenge.
Yeah, well,
at the most mechanical of thinking about it, I would like to definitely have it be more role-play scenario.
Sure. Yeah, a bit more role-play. But I will say, that's not exactly, that is really cool. Definitely contacts are a good reward, and it's especially someone famous in the world with a lot of clout, that's really cool to get. But I would put that on the level of treasure and XP and a castle in the world and a house. Whereas actually having another human, well, not necessarily human, but another person join your party, and actually become a permanent member, that's huge to me, that.
That is, especially in a game that balances it through a 4-person party. Getting the 5th person, well, that's 25% more power. Oh yeah.
Well, and it's funny because I'm not even describing necessarily just what the rules, but just sort of my sort of visceral reaction, I guess, is that I even it doesn't even have to be a great character. If you get a level 1 guy just joins your party, your level 5 party or something like that, and you get a level 1 guy that just decides to come along with you. To me, that feels just as good as, getting Elminster as a contact. So I'm not sure what that shakes out to, because it might not really mean a lot.
It is definitely fun to play out every once in a while. It's you've so enamored the local populace. There's a young 14-year-old boy. He's wearing, some makeshift armor sort of thing. It's mostly padded. He's coming with you.
In some ways, maybe not that, but as a fan, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a one-time sort of thing. It's and you got to show them the perils of no, this is gonna really hurt if it, this trapped arrow goes into your squiddly spooch or
a new a squire or something like that. Yeah.
And so that's great to add that sort of thing, and it really does feel like you're a part of the setting rather than just moving through it. You are affecting change with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of nice.
Yeah, and I always like the Final Fantasy model of adding one character every once in a while. You have a new character in your party. Your party has just grown.
I do like that too, and I think that works very well in a low party number campaign where, like I said, D&D is balanced for a 4-person sort of thing. So if you only have 2 people at the table, you can have a rotating group of you can have a rotating group of NPCs that kind of come in and help fill the void. Like, okay, what I'm planning here is going to require maybe, it's probably going to need a little bit more, melee oomph. So let's seg in, a nice, fighter NPC to help out. The players will still wind up controlling him. I can veto any of their actions, so you can't strip down, sell his gear off and then go barging in naked. But they do gain the effect of extra player that way. So Fighty McFighterson has joined the party.
Yep. Yeah, and I like that. Okay, cool.
So would that be should that be like the opposite of losing a person, where it'd be like oh no, we've lost the one person, it feels like I'm missing an arm. It's like, oh, we've gained an extra person, now it's like I'm fighting with like 2 swords and a shield. Rah!
I don't know if I
should it feel like oh yeah, we've got some real power behind us now that we got these extra numbers and we're able to really coordinate good. He's only a bard, but he's playing competence all the time on us, man.
Yeah, because okay, so here's what happens when a new person joins, is especially like a tight-knit, imagine a tight-knit adventuring group.
Oh, I dream of a tight-knit adventuring group.
Well, they've been together for 7 levels, and
they know not to fool around in a dungeon. They are one team, not like 4 players.
And imagine they've somehow managed that none of them have died. They're all level 1 to 7. They've spent the whole that many levels together, and they've somehow managed no one's died. Or maybe someone died and got resurrected or something, but they basically...
It wasn't for long. It was a week. He was only dead a week. Yeah, we cast, the preserved corpse on him. There wasn't even anything happened.
And then you bring in a new character, and this happens in TV shows and stuff, because you bring in that new character and they're like...
Scrappy-Doo, you've ruined the series!
They clash and they're like, you're doing things wrong, or how have you managed to survive so long by doing those things out of order, and so they're telling them what to do, and they're outshining them in one area, and then they're screwing everything up in the other, and they're backstabbing them.
I have experience with that. In the campaign we mentioned earlier with my Elven Chronomancer. Yeah. For a time he was the only spellcaster in the group, and what he was doing was pretty okay, I think. Yeah. He had some fun. He was able to outrun somebody falling. That was kind of boss, I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was going down the flights of stairs faster than the one person was able to fall, thanks to a readied action. Fun with game terms. Yay! Yeah. But then, I brought a friend in sort of thing, and he wanted to play for a little bit, and he played a spellcaster too, and his spells were really trumping. He was blowing fireballs out of everywhere. He was lightning bolting everything. He was a battle mage. And that, so I won't lie, I experienced a bit of jealousy. It's like, dude is doing a lot more damage to me. He is really outshining me. And then it occurred to me, but I don't have to be jealous about this, because he's now filling a role I didn't actually want that much in the first place. I didn't want to be the Chronomancer who kills things with fireballs. That means I can refocus on who I am and really collect myself up. I'm the guy casting haste and slow, and I'm doing the tactical battle maneuvers. I'm pausing this person as I'm, speeding up this. I'm controlling the battlefield that way. I don't need to kill people outright. Mm-hmm. I help my friends kill better than ever.
Yeah.
And so because of that one person coming in, outshining me in the role, it allowed me to redefine and refine my character.
Yeah, well, fortunately you were able to sort of introspect, but...
Not everybody's at the tabletop introspective.
And also, not every character, even if you, the player might be very enlightened and say, okay, well, yeah, this and that, and my character doesn't have to be the center of attention all the time. However...
I dream for a cohesive set of players with that mentality, too.
Well, however, my character does want to be the center of attention and does care about, does get jealous that someone else is impinging on what he sees as his turf.
I cast Summon Popcorn and start chanting, Mage fight, mage fight, mage fight.
Well, exactly. Can you imagine, I don't know,
What are you doing casting fireballs on there? I was getting ready for lightning bolts there. Come on. You don't need to outshine me. I was here first, buddy.
Yeah, and I think that can work, both with, a new player. A new player can come into the campaign.
I think it's good for role-playing.
But also can be if the DM adds, here's a new member for your party. He's 10 times better than your fighter. Oh.
Well, that means I'm going to have to pay an extra half share to the rogue, and he suddenly doesn't wake up one morning. He came down with a nasty case of slit throat. That's right. I'm good, but I have my flaws, my character quirks.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't outshine me.
My murdery character quirks.
I'm perfectly fine and happy. I mean, but I am a murderer. I do that for a living. Don't outshine me where I like to be, the brightest bauble. I am a murderer for hire. That's what the Baron's got us doing right now.
So I don't think we solved that. I think we only served to shed light on the problem a little bit. But
well, I think we've also highlighted different ways to work through. I don't think there is a proper resolution in this term for how it goes.
Just however they do it.
I would like to see it where the players do feel like it's like, oh, without this one person, we're really hurting. I guess it's kind of like the concept of a person like moving away from town and then realizing their little league baseball team just disbanded without them. They couldn't do it without them. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to feel needed. So I think if for nothing else than the person who's gone, to say, hey, like we've been really hurting without you, sort of thing. Like I got the phone number of the guy who got canned this week. I'm gonna have a phone call, make sure he's doing okay, because getting fired always hurts. I don't care how blasé you are. If you put any care into your work, you're gonna feel it if you ever get let go. Oh, yeah. So I am definitely going to make sure to tell him, hey, we've been really struggling without you. This is just being like trying to stop a dam bursting with like a finger in it, sort of thing. It's just being it's feeling harsh, sort of thing. Because one, it's true, sort of thing. There was a reason I was working despite holding back spasms. Just bite down on your tongue a little bit. No one will notice you're having back spasms. Just keep going. Mm-hmm. Make sure you take an Advil as soon as this rush is over here. Don't worry too bad. And everyone likes to feel like they have been making a difference. So maybe as a DM it wouldn't hurt that much just to keep the pressure on the players, so that if they lose a person, that it really does feel like, oh man, like we're really hurting without this one guy. Unless, of course, they make a retreat, in which case just throw up some token resistance, like, oh no, we're just trying to get out of here with the corpse of our friend. How dare these goblins get in the way? Lightning bolt done. Okay, but at least make it feel as though it's like, oh, we wouldn't be having this problem if he was alive, just to suddenly slice through them. Darn fighters dying on me all the time.
So you don't notice until you don't notice how much you relied on them until they're
part of the tactics. It's just gone.
Yeah. And then you try to replace them with the new guy at if you're training a new guy at work or something like that, that's always a pain.
I hate training new people. I don't care how good they wind up being. I just hate training new people.
Yeah, so take that attitude with you into a role playing game, and
God, you better know how to dodge and parry. I do not want to have to teach a person this in the middle of a fight. It's all live fire exercises. There's no training field for us here.
Yeah, exactly. And don't necessarily bring the whole attitude and all that negativity, but do keep it in mind and sort of allow that to inform your character role playing.
Well, you could work it as a nice role playing by doing it that way. It's like, what's wrong? Is this guy really going to be up to par with our previous fighter? I mean, can we really keep up what we're used to with this new guy here? Can he fill the void? And then he comes up, and all of a sudden he's blocking attacks, and all of a sudden the wizard didn't get hit at all. The attack was blocked, and the wizard's like, all right, I think we can work with this guy. He's doing good. And then it does feel like, oh, he's a different person, but he's filling the same void in his own different way.
Yeah.
And so that's a nice way of saying, we do miss the old guy. We'll make sure we'll commission a statue in his honor. We'll put it in the town square or something. Everyone will love it. Pigeons especially.
And the new plot twist, the old guy gets resurrected 6 months later after you've all readjusted.
Okay, I hate to break this to you. I got some bad news and some worse news. Okay, the bad news is we've completely filled the position for you. You're no longer needed here. The worst news is that we never did commission that statue for you, but we do have a flesh to stone spell. We can make things work for everybody if you're just willing to take one last hit for the team.
With that, I think we've gone a little bit over time.
Yeah, I like where we ended, though. I think that's a nice little mental thought process.
I want to remind people we're on Facebook and facebook.com/simulationist. I'm on Twitter at @spacebootnumeral1.
I peek into Twitter, so I mean, if you want to put up Simulationist stuff and let us know that you're doing it, I will definitely keep peeking in.
Yeah, you could probably hashtag. I'll set my Twitter to tell me if people hashtag the Simulationist with the included. I don't, or well, I'll
underscore Simulationist.
I'll put both in there, just in case people want to do that. So we'll look for hashtags that way. Yeah, so cool. In the end,
just remember that. I suppose if you go back to some of the earlier iterations we had, like when Brian died in Family Guy, you don't have to take this necessarily as a purely bad thing. You can do your best to spin some good out of this. Get some, try and get some role playing out of there. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just something like, what are we going to do with the stinky corpse? Like we promised, it's in the charter. He gets a proper burial. We don't just leave him where he falls. So now we're going back to town, and now we got a stinky corpse with us. Good going, Dave. Now we're stuck with a stinky corpse instead of a smelly fighter. Ugh. But yeah, so long as you get even a little bit of role playing out of it, I consider it. Not a net win, but at least you get some benefit out of a bad situation. There's your silver lining.
Silver lining. All right. Cool.
So take care out there.
I've been Josh Chulevin.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
And send mine.